You are not looking at a different picture, folks. I got a haircut today, so I'm feeling nice. And of course, Hayden has a haircut as well, so we're both feeling fresh and cool for the summer. Hayden. Anyway, welcome everybody to another episode of Downstage with Bryan and Hayden. Hayden, how you doing?
I'm doing good. How about you, Bryan?
So having a haircut, I'm just happy that my week of doing a nonstop, a week of nonstop shows is finally over.
It's like you probably spent yesterday just sleeping on the bed for like 24 hours straight.
I was just practically in bed for like most of the day. I mean, not like most of the day, but just like most of the day. I still had to do some chores and stuff like that too. But by the time Sunday was over, I was like, I just got home and I was like, just like sleeping, because it says a lot when I'm just like I love ushering, but it says a lot when I get home and just snooze for like a couple hours. That, and also I'm also taking a train too, so that's even more of a hassle. But yeah, my week was good. I'm just happy that my crazy work week is over. Unfortunately, because of how my scheduling was working out, I could not do Hayden's superhero table read thing for his scripted series. I did drop by before I went to work, which was hilarious because here they are about to go on on Zoom and whatnot, and here I am like literally just dropping on a train, just like, hey guys, I'm just dropping by before I head off to work. Like literally, that's how I did it. It was like, hey guys, I'm just dropping by. We're going before work. What else is new? It's hilarious when
Also, when you have the crappy reception from being on the subway trying to make that Zoom call with us as well, or trying to join the Zoom call, I should say.
Oh yes, it's like the Zoom gave me an option. It's like, do you want to use your Wi-Fi, cellular data, or call in? And I'm like, call in, and then they gave me all these different numbers to use. I'm like, you know what? I'll just use the cellular data Wi-Fi thing. So I'm good. It's just for like 1 minute or two. So because the Zoom thing like literally gave me all these different numbers to use. I'm like, I'm not calling from Europe. Am I calling from Europe? No. Am I?
I don't have a VPN on here. I can't make this work.
But yeah, I'm just glad that, like you said, I just took a whole day just like relaxing yesterday, and then just practically just not relaxing in my bed, but just like relaxing in general. Just like, hey, you know what? I had a good week overall. I just needed it, and yeah. And going by what I saw on Sunday's read, it went pretty well from what I saw. So yeah. So we got a couple of good, interesting news to talk about this week. First off, from some Broadway news, Funny Girl is back on Broadway after I think maybe 40 years, maybe, and that's including the movie. I believe after 40 years of not being on Broadway or being talked about going to Broadway with Lea Michele, and then not going with that, and then essentially Lea Michele just essentially using Glee as her demo reel to play Funny Girl on Broadway, and that didn't work out for obvious reasons, obviously, but obviously not because of what's happening with her. But so Funny Girl finally opened up on Broadway, I believe a few nights ago, or just last week, or within the week in general. And oh boy, it has gotten some unfavorable reviews. Yeah. From what I read, it's been getting a lot of like B's and mostly C's, which is good, I guess, considering it's a famous musical, and whatnot. But from what I've been hearing, the lead actress, Beanie Furman, I believe her name is, or something like that. it was a character that she was like essentially gunning for the past, like, for a lot of her career as an actress. And a lot of it from what I read is, oh, she acts well in the play, but when it comes to singing, it's like a great line, I believe, from Vanity Fair is like, Beanie goes to the front, and I'm quoting as best as I can. Beanie goes to the front of the stage, says, "Hello, gorgeous," to an invisible, mirror, i.e., the entire crowd. The crowd goes wild, and then she starts singing. Reading that is just how it's going to be interesting to review, and then she starts singing, always has to indicate something's wrong. And from what I've seen, it's a definitely high voice singing wise. And it's like, again, I'm not really a singer, so I don't have the experience to say, oh yeah, I know what a good singer is, I know what a bad singer is. So, but I know at least something from the fact that it's definitely it's definitely to a point where she has to be trained a little better to sing. I'm sorry to say, if singing isn't her forte, then obviously, it's got to be something that's so hard to moat to do that. And then suddenly it's like, oh, it's if singing is like one of the weak shoots, then and it's something going to be one of the things that people will be talking about. Oh, I hear dogs. Okay, I guess that's Hayden's.
Yeah, it's coming from my end, so I'm just gonna mute myself for a quick second.
No, perfectly okay. But yeah, from what I've been reading and from what I'm understanding is that Beanie, is casted well. It's a hard role to do, and if you're in New York City and if you've seen ads for it, you know how hard it's selling this show to people to go see the show, especially since The Music Man is on Broadway now with Hugh Jackman, and compared to, say, maybe some other play or something like that. Again, it's a hard role to try to do, but when people are emphasizing how off key it sounds, there's going to be a problem, especially going forward as the play goes on, because I believe it's probably going to be like since it's a musical, I believe it's probably going to be going on for like maybe a couple of months, maybe half of the year. I'm not really sure. So, Hayden, do you got any counterpoints for that?
Perfectly timed too, because the dogs finally stopped barking for a bit. Yeah, so I think since I don't follow musicals as much, so I think all I can go off of is what you basically just kind of told me now about the reviews, about the about how it seems like she doesn't need more training for her singing to just be able to be more on par with what's required of the musical itself. So it seems like that might be what is necessary.
Yeah.
But the fact that it's getting B's and C's, yeah, it's definitely decent. I mean, it could always be worse. So they clearly have at least a decent enough foundation, but they definitely need to like rework some things. It sounds like if they really want to get it up to that higher level of like.
Yeah, because apparently, from what I'm seeing already, the show ends around November this year. So
Okay,
obviously,
yeah.
they're doing this for at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 months or so. Give or take 7. Now, it is possible for the show to run its course maybe towards because remember, right now the show is in its infant stages essentially. By the time it's summer, that's usually when the what's it called? That's when usually when the major focus is when it is on Broadway, because by the time it's summer, because that's when a lot of the more people actually go see shows on Broadway, especially if it's a new show and whatnot.
Yeah.
Or revival or what have you, or something like that. Now, compare that to say to maybe a show with a limited run. Obviously a limited run would have much more of a limited schedule. Hey, we're only doing this for 15 weeks, and then we're done. We got I don't know, Matthew McConaughey starring as some I don't know, Sherlock Holmes on Broadway. So, well, okay, now I just made it obviously something that's going to be something that would never happen, because obviously Matthew McConaughey playing Sherlock Holmes. Well, of an interesting idea, it would be hilarious considering it's Matthew McConaughey. So obviously they got to try to repurpose it as a Texan Sherlock Holmes, as opposed to obviously British. And of course, with Sherlock Holmes being a public domain character, you could do whatever you want with him. Anyway, sorry for the tangent, but anyway, if they're obviously selling tickets all the way up to November, right? And there is some easily bad press going forward now. Would the bad press affect the show going forward, especially going into summer?
It's a possibility. I would say that. But it seems like also they have a good opportunity here, given that it's like there's probably not as many people as you're saying, like in the summer shows. So it's like this could also be like a good like kind of trial run for them. Kind of figure out what's going to work, what's not going to work, and then see if they can do something to try and like work on it to make it better for when they do get the like much more butts and seats, so to say, in the summer.
Yeah, and I have a funny feeling maybe by the summer or so they would probably go, okay, these things probably don't work because Harvey Fierstein wrote the book, book being the script or music and whatnot. And according to some sources, he added 2 songs and also deleted a couple songs from this new revival. So obviously, from now maybe up till some summer-ish, they can easily go, okay, we need a little rehaul. Obviously, it's Broadway. Each new night on Broadway is different, or each new night in theater is a very different place, especially for music, especially as a musical. So, yeah, like you said, right now they're obviously probably testing out the waters with where they probably got to go with summer, especially with summer being, hey, it's summertime. It's probably got to be a lot more people wanting to go see a Broadway show. The Lion King is sold out. Music Man is sold out. We can go see either, Dear Heaven Hansen or maybe or Funny Girl, but Funny Girl may be a little more, cheaper. Because, and that's another thing is that to get people into see their shows, obviously the theaters might, or the production company might, lower the ticket prices. So people who want to go see the show, hey, for like maybe $50 to see a mezzanine seat, compared to say, a $200 orchestra seat, obviously people will be like, okay, it's $200 to see to a orchestra seat, but it's only $50 to see in a mezzanine. And then later, it's possible, hey, word of mouth gets a little better, and then suddenly it's like, the show gets better. Of course, but that's again, that's just pure speculation, the show might just run its course through November and no weird things happening. They might not change anything. They might change again. Who knows? It's Broadway. And of course, what really boils down to is what will the production or producers get out of this, really? Because Funny Girl, very famous play, if it makes its money back through its one, then they're perfectly happy. Anyway, long tangent over. But yeah, obviously, from what I could see, Funny Girl from what I read, it's getting somewhat horrible. I mean, not horrible reviews, but it's getting so-so reviews, and a lot of it has been emphasized on the fact that the lead actress hasn't been really trained well to sing. You know, acted well, but not really. And again, that's not a problem to have, especially as a going forward, is trying to figure out, hey, how can we salvage this compared to say, hey, why don't we just put an understudy in while the actor while a
Yeah, well, the actress takes some time to kind of like get some like more vocal training on the side or something like that, or
yeah.
focus more on that while the understudy takes over for a little while.
Yeah, and of course, I don't think they want to do that because if the understudy takes over, then it just shows that there's obviously more problems happening with that. A great example of that, I wouldn't say a great example of that is an example of that is what happened with Tarek and Edgerton. Tegonjin. Oh man, that guy's name is
Taron Edgerton.
Yeah, Taron Egerton, who played Elton John in Rocket Man, also Kingsman. Great actor in his own right, especially as an up-and-coming actor. He was in the was it West End but he was basically playing in London in the play Cock, and I've had a friend of mine who directed said play for like a student production, and he said that the play is a very emotionally taxing play, and unfortunately Mr. Edgerton had to bow out because of not only getting COVID, but because of both of probably the fact that it is a very physically taxing play, because I think there's a lot of kissing and a lot of it's a very, like I said, there's a lot of emotion and physical intimate. It's a very intimate play.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what I was trying to say. For some reason, I'm just saying, oh yeah, it's a physical play, all that stuff. But
yeah, you're saying physical, and I'm like, okay, what kind of physical are we talking here?
I'm talking about intimate play, and of course, doing a play like that from like maybe 8 or 12 weeks, 15 weeks, however many weeks it was, and then getting COVID at the same time is obviously got to be a little problematic for him. So of course he had to bow out because of just because of that, and then an understudy had to come in and essentially become the new role for that thing. So obviously, and again, I'm not comparing it to what's happening on Broadway with Funny Girl. It's just that understudies do come in to help out the show. It's just that sometimes the understudies come in only when there's a big problem, i.e., hey, the main actor is sick today. They have laryngitis. They obviously can't really speak that well. So obviously, hey, just have the understudy go on today, and then suddenly, oh yeah, by the time it's the next performance, the main actor should be fine. But yeah, Broadway in theater is a very tricky subject, tricky business to do, especially if you're in musicals. But as we move on to Broadway, we actually could talk about stuff that isn't. I know. I'm sorry if I bore everybody with Broadway, folks, but again, Broadway has just been a lifestyle of mine for the past several years going on. He's lived in New York. He knows the tricks and the trials and tribulations of being a Broadway actor or just wanting to be on Broadway. But then there are people who go into show business and become entertainers, specifically film, and specifically in film news. Nice segue, Bryan. So we have interesting film news. Sony announced 3 sequels. One sequel is obviously Venom 3. Because obviously Venom 3, because Let There Be Carnage made a lot of money, or made some money to go, hey, let's make another one because it's easy for us. And also Morbius kind of stunk.
Yeah.
And then
we gotta stay relevant somehow.
Yes, and surprisingly, from what I saw, was them actually greenlighting another Ghostbusters sequel. Specifically, I think it's probably gonna be Ghostbusters Afterlife 2, or it follows the story after the Afterlife. So that's gonna be an interesting movie, to say at least. But the biggest what the hell type of news I read was that right before I went to bed last night, it says, "Oh yeah, Sony unleashes Spider-Man, a new Spider-Man spinoff." I'm like, "Ooh, what is it?" And they decided to spin off a character called El Murto. I'm sorry if I'm butchering the name, but El Murto.
Oh, is it El Muerto?
Yeah, El Muerto. There we go. El Muerto. Sorry, El Muerto. The character of El Muerto has only existed in 2 comics. And he only faced Spider-Man for 2 comics. But apparently, Sony decided, hey, we really want to keep this Spider-Man franchise to ourselves and not let, Marvel essentially take it from us. So we're just going to scrape the bottom of the barrel and just randomly find a character that somehow would be, hey, good to see on screen. And I know they appeal to it too, because they had Bad Bunny as the main character, as the title character. And anybody who knows me, I'm a big wrestling fan, right? And most recently, Bad Bunny has been in WWE wrestling on and off, mostly for very big time pay-per-views like WrestleMania or Royal Rumble. But from a physical, from a physical actor standpoint, where he actually has to do like flips and stuff like that, he actually could wrestle for the most part. There's a lot of it that actually goes, oh wow, that is impressive for a guy that is known only primarily as a singer, what have you, and then go into a wrestling ring and somehow do like moonsaults and stuff like that too, where it goes, wow, just like this boy can really move. So I can understand with Bad Bunny, but it's the idea of them wanting to do and I think this is because DC is actually doing Blue Beetle, right? And Blue Beetle, specifically Jaime Reyes, right, is one of their prominent Latino superheroes. So with obviously Blue Beetle coming out next year, I think next year or around next year, obviously, the probably Sony's like, oh, hey, uh, DC is doing that first Latino superhero. Why don't we just do our own version of a Latino superhero and use someone from Spider-Man? Oh, hey, Latino Superman. Hey, I mean, not Superman, Spider-Man. I just realized what I was saying. And hey, and also there is a Latino Superman too. He exists in an Elseworlds cartoon movie. It's a Justice League movie. I forgot what it's called, but it is an interesting story where it basically, instead of him growing up in Kansas, I believe he basically grows up in Mexico City or around that area. But anyway, Sony just says, "Hey, let's just do our own Latino superhero. We have Spider-Man. What should we do?" Obviously, the biggest choice with a Latino superhero would be Miles Morales. That would be the easy choice. But no, for some reason they decided, no, let's not go with Miles Morales in live action, because obviously they're doing Miles Morales with Spider-Man, the Spider-Verse stuff.
Yeah, because they're currently working on the sequel for that one.
Yeah, so obviously, and if you look up, if you look at other at other if you look at other Latino superheroes in the Marvel side, specifically in Spider-Man, there's a couple of them that I'm trying to remember what their names are.
Also, by the way, like you could easily take Scorpion and then just have a Latino actor play him.
Well, actually,
which they already are kind of more or less we're already bridging on anyway in Homecoming.
Yeah, with Michael Mando.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, here I am looking at the here I am looking at the list of Latino superheroes in the Marvel comics, and sure enough, the list is like legitimately long. And if they really wanted to do a Spider-Man character that was, adjacent to Spider-Man, if they really wanted to do a Spider-Man character that was adjacent to, Peter Parker or something like that, just make okay, I'll go out on a limb here. Just make the live action version of Spider-Man 2099. Miguel O'Hara. I mean,
that would be fun to see, but then it's also we're in that problem of they are currently using him for Spider-Verse.
I mean, but then again, we do see in the Spider-Verse, across the Spider-Verse, Miguel O'Hara. Well, not only at the end of Into the Spider-Verse, but at the end of Into the Spider-Verse, the tail end, and also from what we saw, he's jumping across the like all these universes with different Spider-Men. So obviously, they could easily just do Miguel O'Hara in a live-action form. Of course, trying to get Oscar Isaac to do him for live action. See how his schedule is with Moon Knight, but especially if Moon Knight goes for another season, something like that. I really hope so. But
it's hard to say too with like Disney shows the way they are as well, because they just kind of like greenlight one show and then go to another show, then go to another show. They just keep moving on. Like they do a season of a show, then they just kind of move on to the next thing and kind of forget that it happened because they're more concerned with trying to get as much content out as they can. So yeah. So I feel like his schedule would probably open up enough if they, depending on when they did it.
Okay, and here's another character that is adjacent to Spider-Man, Tarantula. He is a Latino Latino superhero. Tarantula, Spider, obviously. And he's primarily known to be a supervillain, and El Muerto. Oh my God, I'm putting.
Do you want me to say his name?
Yes.
El Muerto.
El Muerto. He, according to the Spider-Man canon or comics, he was a supervillain who became a superhero, who became reformed towards the end of the thing. Because obviously, when you're facing Peter Parker, you're gonna get reformed at some point.
Yeah, he's gonna pull the old talk no jutsu out on you.
Essentially, and you bring up a good point where it's like you have a character like, say, Tarantula, or maybe even a character like Scorpion, or someone else, But I understand them doing, hey, let's work with Bad Bunny, and Bad Bunny is a prolific singer. He's got a wide fan base. But again, this is Sony. This is Sony. This is also the same people who gave us Jared Leto thinking he was disabled and unable to go to the bathroom on set. Well, help.
Also, it's Sony giving us another singer who does have some fans somehow. So,
well, it's because,
who knows? Who knows? With Sony's track record, it's gonna be like a coin toss at this rate.
Yeah, and then we have to figure out. Oh yeah, what are they gotta be doing with Madam Web? I mean, seriously.
Why are they even doing that in the first place? Like, because one, like, if you're gonna do Madam Web, you gotta have Spider-Man in there because she only has ever existed in conjunction with the Spider-Man in some way or another. Like, she'd be perfect for like Into the Spider-Verse, like Into Spider-Verse 2. Like, I'd love if she showed up there because it would make sense.
Yeah,
It's like, yeah, they're just so desperately grasping for straws because they really like want to try and like hold on to as many characters as they can to try and give themselves some like, you know, a financial boost.
And also, what's we call it? Not to segue into the next story, but in the next story in Doctor Strange, it is going to be premiering one of their first Latina superheroes, America Chavez, who she's a Latina in the Marvel universe, and obviously this is basically going back to what I was saying before with DC and Jaime Reyes. Obviously this is Sony's like, hey, the MCU has their own Latina superhero that they're going to be trying to do. DC is going to be doing their own Latino superhero. Here's us, Sony. We could do that. And then figuring out, oh, you have such a prolific category for Spider-Man characters, right? And then you find a character that no one has heard of until last night, apparently, and has only existed in 2 comics. And of course, there are characters that have been done that who've only existed in, like, say, 1 or 2 comics and suddenly have become excelled into the Marvel canon or the DC canon. But if you really want to do your first Latino superhero, Sony, I understand the appeal of Bad Bunny because a lot of my friends listen to him and are fans of him. So obviously, and of course, with a Hispanic, Latino background and whatnot, it helps, right? Representation and whatnot. But
it's not just the fact that it's representation. You also have to actually get the representation right. You actually have to write a good, compelling story. So it doesn't just come off as like you're just throwing up a person of color just for the sake of doing it to make it sound like you're actually, all about representation when you're just only trying to scratch the bare minimum. Especially with like the way they've been, like especially with the way Sony's movies have been written.
Oh yeah,
which is also why I'm like, this is going to be such a like a coin toss if it's actually going to be good or bad, or really passable or bad. I feel like is the metric when it comes to these Sony movies at this point.
Yeah,
like Venom, the Venom movies, they're passable. Morbius, that's a definite bad.
Obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Hell, there is a random character that I just saw called Agony, which is a symbiote that was created along with Venom and Riot and Scream and a couple others. And this one, Agony, she uses acidic saliva, so basically she could spit acid. And what I was reading is that her first host, Leslie Guess, oh man, I'm butchering names today. But anyway, no. Leslie Gearsnaria, I hope I'm pronouncing it right, basically was working for Carter Drake at the Life Foundation. So obviously you have a character that was that in the comics, right?
Mm-hmm.
Worked for the main character, worked for the villain of the first movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, you have a character like, like the Life Foundation idea from the first Venom movie was like, there's this whole organization or this whole scientific building that is essentially playing God with these alien life forms, sentient life forms, And yet, of course, they only do it for like one movie and they don't really show like a lot of it. It's like. And of course, with the Carnage just happens to just come out because who's it called? Cletus Cassidy decides to bite Eddie Brock in the cheek or whatnot, and then suddenly he tastes his blood, and the blood ends up essentially coming infused with all that stuff, and like the way, like in terms of origin stories, like Carnage has a weird one,
Mm-hmm.
compared to where it's like, I think maybe it is the same thing in the comics, but I'm not really sure. But again, I just found a random character on again scrolling through this Wikipedia list that has a lot of these actual characters, and I found one that ended up being connected to Venom. So if they really wanted to do that, they could easily have just done that and just like, oh, by the way, boom, this isn't really a Venom spinoff, but this is a character that's essentially Venom related. So it isn't really a spinoff, but it's also more of a continuation of that story rather than just being a Venom. Because when I say Venom spinoff, I'm just thinking of, oh, maybe it's like, Mrs. Chen having a spinoff of just having like a Mrs. Chen's Day Out, where it's just like her running the store, or like her running a store, or a spinoff of who's it called? The husband. I forgot. I forgot the guy's name already. Oh crap! Even that's a running gag in the movies of Venom forgetting the guy's name or calling him an idiot or whatnot, or Eddie not caring about the guy's name. Following the life of not only Venom's girlfriend and her husband, but that's a spinoff or something like that. When I think of spinoff, I think of characters that exist and somehow being spun off into a new line of work, compared to say adjacent characters where they actually do feel like, oh, this is part of the Venom thing. Hey, we could probably build on that, but no. Yeah. And of course, speaking of, but yeah, I am curious to see where they go with Venom 3, though. Same thing with Ghostbusters Afterlife 2 or Ghostbusters 5, I guess, by this point.
No, I think that would be, well, oh, wow, yeah, that actually would be, that is 5, wow.
Yeah, even though they don't really consider Ghostbusters to 2006 to be a related to the thing, even though they decided to do it in comics. So Ghostbusters 5 or Ghostbusters 4 or whatever they want to call it, or Ghostbusters even 3.
Or Ghostbusters Before Life.
Yeah, or we're continuing the after thing.
Ghostbusters Lifeless.
Yeah. Or Life After Death or whatever. Which would probably be a title, by the way. But I am curious to see where they go with that Ghostbusters thing, because I really enjoyed that Ghostbusters movie. Like, really enjoyed it. Like, I felt it to be, a part of the heart and soul of the Ghostbusters franchise. I'm sorry for like a tangent for like almost 15 minutes about Sony, but
can you blame us?
No, I honestly can't blame you if you want to go into a tangent, but
I'm just talking to the audience with that one.
Oh, sorry. Maybe segue into the next story, Hayden, while I could take a breather.
I just gotta remember what the next one was, to be honest.
Doctor Strange.
Oh, I thought we already. Oh, no way. Yeah.
Yeah,
because we already did technically segue into it to begin with, and then we went right back into Sony.
Yeah, Sony is like our
Sony is punching bag at this point.
It's like that meme of what we just talked about you last week about like how many times do we have to tell you, old man?
Yeah, exactly.
Sony is literally that.
Yeah. And then just continue it a little further until you got the old fish saying, "I like the young people." Because you can tell that's like how they're trying to market to a younger audience, and failing miserably too to do that.
Exactly. But yeah, our next story is Doctor Strange. I need a couple of seconds, folks. So Hayden, you go and do the honors.
So yeah, I don't know what I'm gonna talk about. I mean, well, Bryan is just trying to come back to his just kind of collect himself. There was a certain trial going on. I don't think we're gonna be talking about that, but I gotta say, like, the lawyer team on AH's side, oh my god, like, just incompetent, unprofessional, just.
Yeah, we could have a whole episode about discussing that, but
I've never seen such like really just truly awful lawyers like that before. because you would think they'd be a little more prepared, but it also shows how desperate they are for their case. But also, this has been kind of something I've been kind of thinking about. The kind of lawyers you get end up kind of reflecting who their clients are.
Yeah.
So when it's like, when I look at their lawyers, I'm like, they are actually a perfect reflection of who AH is. So I actually shouldn't be surprised how they're this awful.
Yeah. And speaking of, I guess, laws, so Doctor Strange is coming out in the next week or so, and it's being banned in, I believe, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, and a couple other countries around that area, because of the inclusion of a lesbian character in the movie America Chavez. She is canonically a lesbian who grew up with two mothers. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. That's her in the comics. She even mentions that she grew up with two mothers, both who are interdimensional people. So again, that's another reason why I'm interested in seeing how they do that character in cinema, because from what I've always read about that backstory, I've always been interested is like, how do they do a character that essentially is an interdimensional being,
Mhm.
at the same time, she's always been read as a very, fun, energetic young woman and whatnot, and then suddenly, and then you find out it's like, oh, her backstory is like, oh, she grew up with, with two moms. I'm like, oh, nice, and I'm just like, which goes to show you how well my mind is right now.
I'm surprised Florida didn't ban this movie.
Just get ready.
Yeah, like honestly.
And of course, it's kind of interesting to say the least, where it's like Florida, I mean not Florida, Disney is trying to like say, oh yeah, we have gay people in Disney and stuff like that too. Going back to what we talked about last week with the two random people kissing in the background of the Rise of Skywalker, or even who's it called, Josh Gad and Beauty and the Beast, Lafute, not Lafute, Gaston's buddy, whatever his name was, LeFou, I think. Is it LeFou? Yeah, I think it is LeFou. Let me just check real quick.
Yeah, it's been a long time since I've seen that movie. Like the only three names I really remember are
Belle, the
yeah.
Beast,
Gaston. Yeah. Pretty much, yeah. It's like I just don't remember much about that movie.
Yeah,
especially the live action one.
Yeah, it is. It's a very French name. It's Le Fou, or the Fool, as it's called in France, I guess.
It's like, well, this is your career now. You're going to be the fool for everyone.
Yes.
Do I have to be? Yes, it is in your name. Live up to it. while the dogs are just barking at something. You can tell they're not a fan of the movie either.
Yes. But yeah, it's just been an interesting past few years with Disney and them trying to be conclusive with gay characters or lesbian characters, or just generally the general LBGTQ plus just in that base alone, and then finding out, oh, Disney has gave money to campaigns and stuff like that too, and then not exactly what's the term, not exactly I mean, I'll just say right now, the stuff that happened with Mulan in China, where it's just like they kind of like, it got, financed by a lot of people that kind of whoop, I hear a cop car in the background.
Oh, that's Disney. Me? That's Disney coming after you.
Oh, Bryan, you're going to jail.
Oh, Bryan, you're not going to the land of enchantment, that's for sure.
The fun that is living in New York City. But anyway, people kind of like mentioned her hypocrisy of Disney of essentially getting funding while there was, especially what filming at least maybe 20 miles away from essentially a, a, a detention camp or something like that between.
Yeah, like some kind of like concentration camp for like I can't remember I can't remember what it was called. But yeah, it's like.
But it's weird seeing Disney trying to be like, oh, we're like gay allies and stuff like that too, and then we see the hypocrisy of Disney regardless, and then.
Yeah, I guess like especially. Well, just like so much hypocrisy too, especially with the Florida thing, where it's like, yeah, they say, oh, we don't support this thing, even though we donated to pretty much a good chunk of the politicians who literally created the bill in the first place that they said they don't support. So clearly that's a load of BS. But then also like, the Florida governor just being like, oh, well, you're going to criticize us? Okay, you lose your self-governing status, which actually does not hurt Disney at all. That actually means they don't have to pay the money to like do the upkeep on the place they were in. Now it's the 2 counties that are a part of Disney. Now it's on the taxpayers.
Yes, but also
people also brilliant idea during an election year to basically
not only that,
take money from your voters.
Not only that, do you know how many people just got to start going to Disney now because of this controversy?
Honestly, no. What's going to happen instead is going to be people going to Disneyland or World, whichever one is called, in California.
I think it's Disney.
And purposely depriving Florida of those like tourist dollars that they are definitely going to need.
Disneyland in what's it called? It's Disneyland in California. So Disneyland is in California. Disney World is in Florida.
Yeah, so they're going to be going to Disneyland instead of Disney World in Florida. Yeah. Like that's honestly what's going to happen.
And then,
especially when people start going down there and start saying, "Oh wow, these roads are awful. They haven't been kept up at all." And then, well, do you want to know why they're kept up? Because Disney was keeping them up because of their self-governing status. Take that away, you're going to get crappy roads.
Not only that,
and then not to mention all kinds of other crappiness.
Not only that, like I was just saying, it's Florida too. So, I mean, would you want to be spending 4 days in the swamp heat that is the swamp mess that is Florida, or would you want to spend 4 days in the sunny California weather that is, well, Los Angeles or wherever Disneyland is? I think it's Los Angeles. Anyway,
it's like, do you want crappy weather or do you want consistently workable weather, essentially? Like that, whether you can actually deal with and work around.
Yes, and do you not want to see a Florida man at the same time?
Honestly, what I think Disney should do to really kind of just like stick it to them is be like, okay, we're just gonna take our stuff and then move it up the next state over.
All right,
because I kid you not, Georgia would probably be happy to have it. Because think about how much like tourist dollars that's gonna bring in.
Oh yeah.
So it's like like all Disney actually has to do to like.
Especially with the Walking Dead ending, and and then there's not that many people, Georgia. I mean, there are Georgia-related TV shows and movies that film down there, but I mean, aside from like the film market and TV market down there, it's like Georgia could like legitimately, if they suddenly get like Disney World for there, or like for a nice little spot there. Oh my God, that would just not only stick it to a lot of people, but also there's like, hey, with Disney, I mean, with Disney, we can move wherever we want to move to.
Exactly. They got the money, they got the power to do it.
No, but they probably got to stay in Florida for the end of time, and even when Florida decides to, it's like that gift of Bugs Bunny showing off Florida from the even when that happens, Disney World is probably still got to be there,
It'll be basically Disney World underwater.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah. No, literally, it's like it'll be on the roller coaster, and as it's going up the hill, and then once it starts going down, you go through the swamp water. You're gonna get a mouthful full of Florida swamp water as you come up.
I think
and then you're looking to see it over, and the friend you came with is gonna be gone, and it's gonna be a gator sitting next to you instead.
Plot twist, it just turns out to be Loki.
I mean, that'd be perfect, actually.
It's just low key it's just like Gator Key, and then it's just basically you and him just having a nice little adventure down in Disney World.
It's like we just have a nice time as we then plot to destroy the world.
But in all seriousness, folks,
Mhm.
it's obviously just another thing to say. Oh yeah, Disney won't censor essentially 14 seconds of saying, "Oh yeah, I have two mothers" or something like that, and the character of America Chavez, I believe, still has like a rainbow pin or something like that on her jacket.
Mhm.
So obviously, it's obviously hard to try and figure out, hey, should we, try and take away 14 seconds of a character that we already devoted our time and effort to making, or should we just like not and just have this character just be free and out to the world en masse and not be, whatever? Because obviously people, even if this movie is banned in those countries, that's not stopping people to taking a trip to another country and just or watching it online.
Mhm. Exactly, but it's like people are gonna try it. But that's the thing is like these countries are gonna try anyway because it's like that kind of like desperate using of your power because it's like all I gotta do is think that okay, no, all we gotta do is just kind of reinforce our beliefs any way we can, so that way the people
Yeah.
will only believe what we tell them, and then they won't believe if they see it from something else. Because we know Disney's gonna like make those changes and like like they're gonna cut out any kind of reference to America Chavez having two moms or that she is a lesbian.
Yeah.
Like we know that's inevitably going to happen when this movie goes to like a grand example, China. We know like they're gonna change the dialogue around in there when it gets translated. Like we know it's gonna happen, and then they'll probably end up doing the same anyway for some of the other countries. I wouldn't be surprised one bit because because at the end of the day, Disney's main concern is going to be financial.
And speaking of financial concerns, let's talk about Netflix. From one corporate company to another corporate company.
From
And
one
probably
company that's going up to a company that's going down, essentially.
but which company are we talking about here?
Oh,
Which
why?
is going up, which is going up, which is going up, and which is going down.
Well, we know Netflix is going up, but the one in their dreams, Netflix is only going up in their dreams because we all know Netflix has been going down for years now.
Yeah, at least going like a couple of years ago when the pandemic really hit, they hit a stride with people watching a lot of these on-demand stuff with streaming services like the Tiger Kings and whatnot, and then the Ted Bundy confession tapes, or basically any serial killer docu-series or something like that, any true crime series essentially.
Yeah.
And then going into this, what was it? Yeah, going into the new year, we find out that essentially Netflix has lost at least a quarter of their total subscribers at the start of the year, or has lost a quarter of their own subscribers for this year, I believe. So it has really, yeah, it has really, yeah, really,
Really?
yeah. Anyway, it has been a. You can tell I've been tired from the past week, folks. My mind is a little mushy, even as I try to speak.
I thought I smelled mashed potatoes.
Yes, but yeah, obviously for the past couple of years, Netflix has been struggling its best to keep itself relevant, and at the same time has been canceling shows left and right because of either they didn't pass a certain demographic, was too costly to produce, or was focusing, or the main issue is they're focusing on other series or other productions to give themselves essentially top priority. A great example of this is that Stranger Things season 4 coming out next month their episode total, I believe, is like maybe 8 episodes, 7 episodes around there. But each episode cost to film each episode was around $30 million just to produce and film alone. Compared to, say, I believe, what was it? I think the $200 million they spend for Red Notice or something like that. You know, obviously, when you have Dwayne The Rock Johnson, Ryan Reynolds, and Gal Gadot starring in a movie together, obviously their asking prices is probably gonna be like a lot of money.
Yeah, like
And
most of the budget probably went to like for them, I imagine.
yeah, and then you have to figure out, not only, and this was also shot during the pandemic too, so a lot of that was probably also testing. So obviously that's got to be like, a lot of it just like, oh, that's probably like another portion of the budget.
And also having to essentially film a show where it's set in a time period where COVID isn't a thing as well. So it's like.
And then you find out there are other shows that are essentially being canceled because of, I'll say that they have like maybe one or two seasons worth of a show, and then they could just cancel it because of those reasons. I remember hearing about there was this, speaking of Sherlock Holmes, we mentioned Sherlock Holmes. There was a Netflix show about, I believe, the Sherlock Holmes Baker Street Boys, or people that live around Baker Street and or basically act as Sherlock Holmes as informants around the area. So hey, it's like, he's working some case, and then there's like, he needs to have some idea of, hey, what's happening in this like this neck of the woods. So he just goes and say, hey, he knows some people that are either homeless or just people who live around the area, and goes, hey, what do you know? And they built a whole ideology or myth of a TV show about these people who live on Baker Street who have worked for Sherlock Holmes, and essentially get on their own adventures. And then we find out, this season that the only season of the show is just like its only season. And again, this has not been nothing new with Netflix. Is that they have this show. They were doing an adaptation for a comic book called Bone, and the creator of the comic was actually so jazzed to do it because he was like, "Oh, Netflix would be amazing to work with." He's been trying to get this thing going for the past, like, say, 20 years or so, and then essentially Netflix decides to not only cancel the thing but also cancel the animation studios that has been doing essentially a lot of these work regardless. So it's like, and like when you think of bad business decisions, a lot of it of Netflix has been amount to worrying about the more popular show rather than worrying about the creatives and stuff like that too. Whereas it's like, it is hard to manage, a network, right? Especially a network like Netflix or HBO Max or Peacock or Paramount Plus or whatever, and you're essentially putting time and effort into essentially getting all that stuff out. So obviously it's just going to be like, we've only had this one season of the show. It's not gonna come back for another season because Netflix doesn't deem it worthy for another season, even though say a show like Emily in Paris gets another season because it's probably easy to produce. And I think a lot of the problem is that a lot of people have gone to Netflix, right, believing they could have like the Netflix deal of like maybe 5 seasons or whatever, or what have you, and then find out this show is like boom, just canceled after a season because they didn't feel like, no one was watching the show, low ratings or what have you, even though there's probably a more stronger Twitter presence or social media presence, right?
Mm-hmm.
Compared to, say, total amount of people watching.
Yeah. Yeah, Netflix just does not have like creator loyalty, for sure.
And I'm still sticking around with Netflix for a while, probably until it's probably going to be at a point of just like, just probably to a point where it's just like, when I feel like Netflix has already, I don't see ourselves still having Netflix by the end of next year, or by the end of essentially by next year.
Yeah.
But when I say probably by the end of next year, or just by 2024 or something like that, where it's just like, unless Netflix decides to rebound considerably,
Mm-hmm.
it's gonna be quite interesting, to say at least, to see. Hey, we had two bad years, right, and all that stuff, and figuring out, hey, where can we go to redeem ourselves? And to do that, stop. What's the word? Stop.
Stop putting the flight plan over your place. Like I heard a plane in the background. Is like.
Oh, that's another thing. Yeah, I live right under a flight plan somewhere. I think it's JFK, either JFK or LaGuardia, or one of those ones.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever's
Probably
closest.
JFK, because I think you're closer to that one. I would say.
Yeah. Whatever's close. Well, I live in Brooklyn.
Well, actually, it could be LaGuardia too. It could be one of them. Yeah, either one. Yeah.
I think it's JFK because LaGuardia is like what, Upper Manhattan or so.
It's more Queens area, like the top of the Queens.
Oh, okay. So
borough,
it is probably it's probably either LaGuardia or JFK. Probably one of the two. Anyway, essentially, Netflix needs to stop greenlighting a lot of these shows that only seem, or movies really, that have only star appeal going forward.
Mm-hmm.
I could easily watch Ryan Reynolds be, a dad for like an hour and a half, or a dad being, fighting some sort of court case of like a Kramer versus Kramer thing.
Mm-hmm.
But why is the budget for that movie going to be like $90 million?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I've seen Ryan Reynolds do movies that its budget was probably like maybe $12 million or $15 million.
Yeah.
Why is these budgeted movies like close to 90 million to like $100 million?
Well, also they're putting their budget in the wrong place too, because it's like they clearly aren't reading these scripts, because like you're saying, they're just thinking the star power is going to be enough, and they're just kind of going with the ones that seem like they are going to generally be easier to have produced and have made, to make essentially a quick buck turnaround, more or less, because they think it'll help, it'll get them more subscribers, when it's like, no, that's not going to be what does it. You might get subscribers for maybe a month or so, but then you're going to lose them immediately, because you're not sustaining consistent quality, and that's what people want. They just don't want like this like cheaply written, only driven by star power kind of content, because it's not good content, for one thing. It's lazy content. And people people don't want that kind of content. They actually want you to put some effort. So Netflix, be more selective, for one thing, but make sure you have someone in the room who tells you, focus on the writing of these stories, so we're not wasting our time here.
And I think that's another reason why content has been lacking with Netflix, because Netflix, for the most part, has been like essentially a savior to shows that were either canceled, or like shows that were, fan favorites and stuff like that too. Like The Office was like on Netflix for years, until it decided to go off and go on Peacock, right? Because
the reason they had to is because of who had the original rights for it anyway. That's kind of a different issue than what we're really talking about, though.
But what I was trying to say is that for years, a lot of these people were flocking to Netflix because of shows like, say, The Office or, their original programming and stuff like that too. And now where a lot of these shows that were formerly there, like The Office or say now Seinfeld, and now it's going like they traded essentially Seinfeld they traded The Office for Seinfeld, even though Seinfeld was already on Hulu.
Mm-hmm.
So, and Hulu made like a lot of money just to say, hey, we have all these seasons of Seinfeld all ready for Hulu.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, Hulu has been like smart about it because one, Hulu also has a package to do like essentially live TV, where it's essentially, hey,
or their Hulu, Disney Plus, and ESPN
yeah,
Plus bundle.
Yeah, and that basically gives you essentially three programming options. With Netflix though, it doesn't really have that option. HBO Max, right? They stream their shows the night of the thing. So say, hey, like Barry, like I love the show Barry.
Same.
It premieres every Sunday night around like what 10 o'clock, 9 o'clock around that area. And right as like, oh, I don't have HBO, but I have HBO Max. I could easily watch the season premiere or the new episode of Barry or the new episode of Our Flag Means Death, or the new show about about the Globetrotters, about the LA Lakers, or something like that. And then, the same thing with Hulu, where it was like, oh, I watch ABC, and I didn't get the chance to see American Idol, so I just have to wait like maybe a couple of hours until it's the next day, and boom, American Idol's right there for me.
Exactly.
Netflix doesn't seem to have that option. I mean, they do with certain shows, like say the CW shows, where it's just like the recent seasons of say like The Flash or Legends of Tomorrow, they end, and then like another week or so, boom, they're on Netflix to watch.
Yeah.
So it's like,
and then also contrast that with like the fact that like look at say the shows that come out from AMC and go on Netflix. They don't show up till maybe a couple weeks before a new season of said show premieres, which is a ridiculous amount of time.
Yeah.
So whatever is like whatever deal they got with them, it's just like it just doesn't make sense.
Like, which is why I'm grateful that Disney Plus decided to salvage the Netflix shows that they had, but also Netflix. I mean, not Netflix Plus. Disney Plus has been very adamant on making a good content, regardless of if you love Marvel, if you love Star Wars, if you love nature documentaries, if you love Disney itself. They have a lot of other things to do because HBO Max has a great hub for Looney Tunes. It has a great hub for TCM stuff. Like if you want to watch old classic movies, or if you want to watch movies that are like 30 years old now or deemed classic. If you want to suffer yourself and watch the DCEU from its start, you can do that.
Well, not just the DCU too, but every kind of DC related content as well.
Even cartoons of the DC caliber. But Netflix really doesn't have that caliber going for. I mean, even Paramount Plus, right? Which will be a topic for the next episode. Which will be a topic for the next episode of the hypothetical what if. Star Trek, right? Star Trek. They have essentially all the catalog of Star Trek stuff, right? They have the movies, they have the TV shows, they have the anime series, they have cartoons, they have like a lot of this stuff, and Netflix does not have that caliber of what they used to have now. And I think this is the reason why they're becoming a lot more desperate into getting people to keep themselves keep themselves to the just keep themselves into just keeping themselves into to staying on with them, because rather than just having other people to go into other streaming services, they still feel like, oh, we're the best. Even when they are destroying the company inside out with like much more higher rated like the budgetary things to go and watch some of these shows or movies. It's like why am I going to be paying $20 a month just to watch 4K when I just want to watch in very crisp HD? You know, I'm perfectly fine with 1080p. Why do I want to watch something in 4K? 4K really doesn't look as much different than 1080p. You know, Mike, I'm looking at my camera right now. It says this is 4K. I'm not looking to see that much of a difference. You know, your camera might say it's 4K as well.
Yeah, mine says 1080p.
Yeah, and I don't see that much of a difference either. So, yeah, long story short, you know, Netflix is really shooting themselves in the foot because they're not really believing in the fact that, they're really not believing in their own problems. I mean, they're very,
no. It seems like it's more of like an ego thing with Netflix, really.
Yeah.
They think they're all that, and they need to realize that no, you're actually not. Like I said, shooting themselves in the foot. They're literally taking a machete and chopping the leg off at the knee. That's literally what they're doing to themselves.
I think to end this discussion, there's a great quote from Obi-Wan Kenobi. And he said, you know, in his fight with Anakin Skywalker, he says, you were the chosen one, right? You were supposed to bring balance to the Force, right? And I say that, you know, not as a gag, but looking at Netflix, they were supposed to be the chosen one. They were supposed to be the ones that were supposed to bring the balance to streaming and stuff like that, too. But now they have become essentially drunk with their own power, or just like so, like you said before, so egotistical, where it's just like they just don't care about, they just only care about their revenue and not about the content they're putting out. And the problem to do that is because a lot of times, a lot of these movies that they're doing are costing like, you know, $60 million, $20 million. I mean, not $20 million. Well, I mean, I've seen $20 million movies on Netflix and they still feel like okay. But they don't really market it that well.
Yeah.
All right, folks. I'm sorry about that long tangent. Netflix, like Sony, has it coming. Of just long tangents, but nowadays it's just like I said before. Oh, of course. Now, I spend a whole episode just being like almost like Two-Face, and now I realize, oh, I needed to change the lighting. I know.
The whole time.
Anyway, I'm in Bryan Davis. I'm Bryan M. Davis. That's been Hayden Lumus. I'm sorry if we went on that. I went on a very tangent-filled thing, but again, like Hayden said last week, we've been gone for a while, so we got a lot of things to pull up.
Yep, a lot's happened. We missed a lot, so we got some catching up to do, folks.
Yeah, but stay tuned for a special episode. Well, not a special episode, but episode 2, or maybe another special episode. I'm not really sure. I guess we could call it a special episode 2 thing, whatever, of another hypothetical crossover that should have happened, but did not. Until then, take care, everyone, and please be safe.